just going to wait it out. That's not me saying it. That's the general manager saying it. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Pirates 5, Rockies 3 yesterday at PNC Park. That's a couple in a row. And that's a couple in a row where some bats were swung to some effect. O'Neill Cruz with a 2-run homer and Brian Reynolds with a triple and a double. For the most part, the offense hasn't really busted out into anything. The win the previous day might have been one of the more pathetic performances of the season, needing 9 full innings to score a single run. But then when you've got Jared Jones going, yeah, that can be a W for you. Ben Cherington was asked yesterday on his weekly radio show about the offense, as absolutely could have been expected. And Charrington's response was exactly, almost verbatim, what I told you it would be. I might as well have scripted it for him. He basically said that the analytics people in their building feel that the hitters that they have are not hitting the way they should. Okay, now that we can agree upon. But his solution for this is to just hang on. Just wait for it. He said, and I quote now directly, if you believe that there's better stuff to come, you don't want to cut it off before you get to that better stuff. He added that there's some underlying stuff behind it. Notably, he cited swing decisions. Okay. You're going to agree with all of this, right? Except for the part where you do nothing. He pointed out several players being well below their track records. His assessment of this group was that it's, quote, a bunch, end quote, of players who are below wherever their analytics people expected them to be. And that's it. And that's it. He doesn't want to make decisions on players who are here now who might be struggling because, and I quote again, it's a combination of patience and belief combined with trying to be really intentional about some of the things that we can make adjustments on, end quote. Nothing at all about who's making those adjustments, nothing at all about the general passive hitting philosophy, and you'd better believe there was no mention of Andy Haynes' name, because that's not okay. You're not allowed to mention his name. You can talk about players all day long, and you can name them. If you're the GM, if you're the manager, if you're the reporter in the press conference room, it's okay to ask about players who are struggling or who just flat out suck. That's perfectly fine. But as soon as you mention a coach, or as soon as a reporter asks a question about a coach, as I did over the weekend, whoa, geez, what happened here? That's what you're dealing with. This answer of Cherington's could have gone on for another hour. He never would have brought up Haynes, never would have brought up the philosophy. Never, never, never. His view of fixing this is plain and simple water finding its level. Law of averages. Never mind that the law of averages actually comes, in baseball anyway, with averages. And all you have to do is look at the players who come to Pittsburgh from somewhere else, including from the minor leagues, their own guys. And you'll see that performance dips in Pittsburgh. You'll also see that through all that time, there's one common denominator. Well, two common denominators. Hitting coach, hitting philosophy. If I really want to stretch it, the third common denominator is that the players who tend to get better or bust out get their advice from somewhere else. His stated priority here, Cherington's, just so that I don't mischaracterize it here, isn't I need to protect Haynes or I need to protect the philosophy. His stated priority is that he needs to protect the players who are already here, who he thinks are about to burst up just because of math. And while he didn't mention Rowdy Tellez, I'm going to do that because Tellez might be the most striking example of being way, way down per his career norms. Though you could obviously throw in Andrew McCutchen. You can toss in Jack Sawinski to an extent as well. But Tellez, he's the guy that was signed when they had an opportunity to sign all kinds of other first basemen, Carlos Santana, and didn't. They took the cheap route. They took the guy that was going to cost the least, but that they could portray as having 35 home runs waiting inside him the way he had a couple of years ago in Milwaukee. After Haynes left Milwaukee, by the way, after Haynes was fired by the Brewers, to be more specific. And I could see wanting to stick by Rowdy. Rowdy's never had a season anywhere near this bad. I don't think anybody reasonably would be suggesting designating him for assignment. You can move him to the bench. You can give more starts to Connor Joe at first. You can bring up Jake Lamb, who set the world on fire in Indianapolis, playing first base. But you don't have to cut him. You don't have to let him go. You don't have to do that really with any of these guys. So the conversation that Cherington seemed to be trying to have on this subject really isn't a thing. You don't have to DFA Rowdy. You don't have to give up on him to bring somebody else up. And you're definitely not going to do that with Kutch. And you're not going to do it with Sawinski either. So what's he actually talking about here? It's just don't look here, look over there. We're not firing our hitting coach and we're not changing our hitting philosophy because we're right and you're wrong and you're dumb. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from someone who legitimately goes by T-Bone, who asks, do the players have any responsibility to hit? And I got to tell you, I love this question because it kind of encapsulates a lot of different questions that have been sent here over the past week or so that have been pointed more toward the hitters themselves than the instruction or the philosophy. And some of them, to paraphrase, have been more specific where it's, listen, you can coach a passive approach, but when you're at the plate, isn't it just your decision to swing? Can you just not override whatever it is that you're being told? And I'm going to try to answer all of this in one swoop here. The players, yes, have a responsibility to attack that first, okay? The players have a responsibility to be good hitters. They have a responsibility to be good hitters outside whatever instruction or philosophy is put their way. Connor Joe is having himself a wonderful season, and he's doing so with Andy Haynes as his hitting coach and Ben Cherington's passive philosophy as his guide. He's having a wonderful season. Joe also might be the smartest man in the clubhouse. I don't even mean that in a baseball sense. I'm just talking about life. This is one really intelligent dude. He's capable of thinking for himself. He's capable of hitting for himself with his own mind. And he's told me on many occasions, most recently in New York a couple of weeks ago, that he'll change his own approach based sometimes on the pitcher that's being faced, based other times just on not wanting to be seen by the opponents as predictable. So there'll be games where you'll see Joe go to the plate and just watch everything go by. It'll drive you nuts. He'll watch third strikes go by because he's just put into his head that he's going to be passive. He's going to show them something different. He's going to show everybody something different, including people studying him on video. And then there's other games, and that's been the case mostly this year, where he just goes up hunting on the first pitch. He understands that the rest of the team is getting pummeled on first pitch strikes, and he's not going to be seen as some great exception to that. Nobody puts together a pitching plan just around Connor Joe. So he's swinging and he's getting some results out of it. So yes, there's an independent element to this. And of course, to your exact phrasing, there's an independent responsibility to it. However, the hitting coach and the hitting philosophy both exist for a reason. And they are the things that are the most common within that environment. If you're sitting there day after day after day in a 162-game season, or you can go back and count all 6 weeks of spring training, and you hear the same things day after day after day, it's gonna penetrate. And when it's everyone in the building, not just that one individual, when you see that it's also the manager who was a former big league hitting coach, when you see that it's everyone around you, who are you to think that you're right and everybody else is wrong? Do you see where I'm going here? Brian Reynolds. I'm going to cite another example, and this might be more compelling than Joe's. Reynolds has been able to hit his entire life. It's not been something that's very difficult for him. Maybe the most natural hitter in the lineup. Reynolds will get into his own, Shelton refers to this as in-between areas, where he's in between wanting to be aggressive and whatever, and then you see these awkward swings, or you see a lot of check swings, or a lot of minimal contact foul balls, or even just swings and misses. Sometimes one arm flails. When Reynolds is asserting himself, he's going to go at the ball, but he's only going to go after his pitch. This was what Rick Eckstein preached, Haynes' predecessor, who Cherington fired in the middle of their first full season together because he didn't go along with Cherington's hitting philosophy. This was what made Reynolds. Reynolds will be the first one to tell you that he is a Rick Eckstein production. Josh Bell will tell you the same thing. Adam Frazier will tell you the same thing. Now, Reynolds, and I don't know why, and I'm not going to begrudge him this because everybody's choices are their own. He has spent the most time in his off seasons with Haynes, working directly with him near Nashville. And Reynolds has found his own way through that with varying success. I think we can all describe Reynolds best as having had varying success in the majors. Is that the answer? Is that the responsibility? You see, there's not an automatic answer to any of this. There just isn't. Meaning the hitter's level of responsibility. I know that it would be, and I mean I know that it would be a healthier environment for everybody if the hitters were receiving instruction that came with a history of making people better. It does the opposite. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.